Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The perfect beginning. It began beautifully, almost like a dream carefully scripted by fate. Her morning started with sweet messages: "Good morning, beautiful, thinking of you already," tiny bursts of attention that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. He was attentive in ways no one else had ever been. He noticed everything: her favorite color, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous, how she preferred silence to small talk. He told her she was special, unique, different from anyone he had ever met. Every word carried the weight of sincerity, every promise sounded like forever. In those first weeks, he seemed perfect. He listened with full attention, remembered every story she told, laughed at all her jokes. When she doubted herself, he reassured her with words that melted all insecurity. He spoke of the future as if it were already written for them: trips, a home by the coast, a life built together. He made her believe she had finally found someone who saw her completely, someone who would never leave. But perfection has a way of cracking, quietly, slowly, until you don't notice the fracture until it runs deep. The first sign came in the form of confusion. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, almost invisible. He began to twist small disagreements into moral lessons. If she didn't agree with him, he made her feel guilty. If she questioned something he said, he acted hurt, as though her doubt was a betrayal. Every discussion became a test she didn't know she was taking. And every time she tried to explain herself, she somehow ended up apologizing. Soon, she found herself walking on eggshells. She started editing her thoughts before speaking them. She measured her tone, her timing, even her laughter. He never raised his voice. That was the most confusing part. He controlled the room with calmness, with a patient smile that said, "I know better." Whenever she tried to express how she felt, he dismissed it as an overreaction. "You're too sensitive," he would say gently, as if comforting a child. That gentleness was the weapon. It disarmed her faster than anger ever could. She began to wonder if she was losing her mind. How could someone who was so loving also make her feel so small? How could a man who wrote her poems also leave her crying without ever shouting? The contradiction twisted her insides. She tried harder to be perfect, to fix things, to bring back the warmth of the beginning, but the harder she tried, the colder he became. He was never wrong, never uncertain. Everything he said carried that same calm superiority, as though he was teaching her how to think, how to feel, how to be. His world had one truth, his own. And hers was slowly fading inside it. People who saw them together would never have guessed what was happening. To the outside world, he was the perfect man, charming, articulate, composed. The kind of person others admired. He held doors open, smiled politely, and spoke about her with admiration. Behind closed doors, that admiration turned to control. Every opinion she voiced became an opportunity for correction. Every tear she shed became proof of her weakness. And yet, she couldn't explain it. There was no visible cruelty, no outburst, no physical aggression. Just confusion, the kind that wraps around you until you can't breathe. He would always find a way to turn things around. When she felt hurt, he'd say, "You're imagining it." When she pulled away, he'd whisper, "You're overthinking again." When she cried, he'd smile softly and say, "You're too emotional. That's why I love you." It sounded like care, but it was poison disguised as tenderness. Days turned into months. She began to question her memory, her instincts, her very sense of self. The world shrank to the size of his approval. If he was happy, she could breathe. If he was cold, she froze. Love became a performance she had to rehearse daily, a role she had to play to keep the peace. If you've ever experienced this, you know the script by heart. It's not an accident, it's a pattern. A method perfected by those who wear masks of kindness. They don't shout. They seduce. They don't argue. They manipulate. They don't destroy all at once, they erode, piece by piece, until what's left of you doubts its own reflection. The truth is, no one suspects the predator who smiles. The narcissist doesn't come with a warning. He arrives as a dream, soft-spoken, charming, full of promises. And before you realize what's happening, the dream has become a quiet prison. Because when love becomes confusion, when peace feels conditional, when the person you trust most makes you question your own reality, that's not love. That's control. And every story like hers begins the same way, with sweet messages, endless attention, and a man who seemed too perfect to be real. He wasn't. The myth behind the mask. To understand the modern narcissist, we must travel back to the origin of the word itself, to a story as old as human vanity. In the ancient world, myths were more than fables, they were mirrors of the soul. And none reflects the narcissist more perfectly than the story of Narcissus. He was a young man of breathtaking beauty. So striking, in fact, that everyone who saw him desired him. But Narcissus desired no one. He dismissed affection with cold disdain, treating love as an inconvenience. One day, wandering through the forest, he came upon a still pool of water. He leaned down, and there he saw a face, radiant, flawless, divine. Captivated, he reached out, but his reflection rippled and vanished. Desperate, he bent closer, and closer still, until he could not pull away. He stayed there, entranced by his own image, unable to eat, sleep, or live beyond that reflection. In the end, he wasted away beside the water that mirrored him. From his body, legend says, sprang a delicate flower, the daffodil, forever bowing its head toward its reflection. It's poetic, tragic, and revealing. Because Narcissus did not love himself, he loved the idea of himself. The reflection was not real, only an illusion of perfection. His love was obsession, born not of confidence but of emptiness. And that is the core of every narcissist you will ever meet. Modern narcissists are not reflections in a pool, they are reflections in their own minds. They build an image of superiority and polish it until it gleams. Their self-love is not genuine, it's a fragile armor protecting something hollow. To the world, they seem confident, ambitious, charismatic. But beneath the surface lies a terrified child who cannot bear to face weakness. Freud was the first to take the myth and turn it into psychology. He said narcissism begins in all of us, a necessary stage of development, but for some, it never ends. It becomes a prison where the ego is both king and captive. Yet it was Carl Jung who went deeper. Jung saw narcissism as a spiritual sickness, the refusal to confront the shadow, that dark, hidden part of the self where shame, fear, and insecurity live. For Jung, the narcissist is someone who cannot face that shadow. Instead, they project it outward. What they hate in themselves, they accuse others of. What they fear in silence, they attack in you. They cannot see their flaws because acknowledging them would shatter the illusion of perfection they've built. This projection is why dealing with a narcissist feels like arguing with a mirror that blames you back. When you try to point out the hurt they cause, they flip the narrative. You become the selfish one, the dramatic one, the problem. It's not a conversation, it's psychological warfare disguised as dialogue. In modern society, the myth of Narcissus has evolved. He no longer stares into a lake, he stares into his own reflection on screens, his curated image on social media, his performance in public. The pool has become digital, the worship self-directed. But the essence is the same, an identity built on admiration, not authenticity. The modern narcissist drowns not in water, but in control, in their need to dominate, to be right, to be adored. Their love is conditional, their empathy transactional. They create a universe where they are the sun, and everyone else is expected to orbit faithfully around their light. Step out of orbit, and you'll feel their cold. And yet, they are experts at disguise. A narcissist will never introduce himself as one. He wears masks, confidence, humor, charm, even vulnerability. He can make you feel safe, seen, and valued, all while studying your weaknesses like a surgeon preparing for precision. By the time you realize what's happening, your emotions are already in his hands. The tragedy of Narcissus was not just that he died, it's that he never knew himself. He mistook the reflection for reality. Every narcissist today does the same. They live inside an image, and anyone who threatens to reveal the truth becomes the enemy. So when you find yourself drawn to someone who seems flawless, too confident, too intoxicatingly sure of themselves, take a breath. Remember the myth. Remember the lake. The reflection always looks beautiful right before it pulls you under. Because the narcissist's love is not a gift, it's a mirror. And when you look too long into it, you start to disappear. The smile that traps. No one suspects the predator who smiles. The narcissist doesn't come roaring into your life, he drifts in quietly, cloaked in charm. He knows exactly how to study people, how to read every gesture, every hesitation, every emotional scar. He listens not to understand but to collect. Each story you share, each vulnerability you reveal, becomes data he will use later. He watches, memorizes, and molds himself into everything you've ever wanted. He's attentive, funny, magnetic, the kind of person who seems to see right through you in the best way. "I've never met anyone like you," he'll say, his eyes steady, voice soft. He'll mirror your values, your interests, even your dreams. If you love art, he'll talk about galleries. If you've been hurt, he'll say he understands pain too. It feels destined, as if you found someone who speaks your emotional language fluently. But it isn't destiny. It's calculation. In psychology, this stage has a name, love bombing. It's the flood before the famine, an avalanche of affection that drowns you in warmth. The narcissist overwhelms your defenses with kindness, admiration, and attention. You start believing you've finally been understood. That you've met someone emotionally safe. But what you're feeling isn't safety. It's control in disguise. Every compliment, every tender gesture is a thread he uses to weave your dependency. He makes himself indispensable, always available, always attentive, always saying exactly what you need to hear. He studies your emotional rhythm and synchronizes to it, becoming the perfect partner, the perfect friend, the perfect answer to all your past disappointments. You think, this is what love should feel like. But real love doesn't feel this fast. It doesn't consume you overnight. The narcissist's attention feels euphoric, like oxygen after suffocation, but it's that intensity that should warn you. Jung once said that everything excessively idealized carries within it the seed of destruction. The narcissist's affection burns too bright because it's fueled by need, not care. He doesn't love you for who you are, he loves what you represent, a mirror that reflects his fantasy of perfection. And when that mirror begins to show reality, when you display flaws, doubts, or moments of independence, he begins to pull away. The warmth cools. The tone shifts. His responses grow shorter, his patience thinner. You'll sense it immediately, the energy changes. You'll wonder what you did wrong. You'll replay every conversation, searching for the moment the magic faded. That's how the trap tightens. Because while you analyze, he observes. While you question yourself, he quietly reclaims control. He doesn't argue, he simply becomes distant. Coldness replaces connection. Indifference becomes punishment. You, desperate to restore harmony, start chasing the warmth he withdrew. And that's exactly what he wanted, to make you reach for him, to prove your loyalty by earning back what he deliberately took away. The truth is that his early sweetness was never about you. It was bait, the performance of affection designed to hook your empathy. The narcissist doesn't crave companionship, he craves admiration. Your love is his reflection. When you see him as wonderful, he feels alive. When you question him, you shatter that illusion, and he retaliates, subtly at first, then cruelly. Soon, you'll notice how he shifts blame effortlessly. He'll say you misunderstood him, that you're insecure, that you're overreacting. Every attempt to express pain becomes evidence of your instability. This quiet rewriting of reality is how he maintains power. And because you remember how gentle he once was, you'll think, maybe I really am the problem. That thought is the victory he wanted. The narcissist's smile, once comforting, becomes unnerving, too practiced, too hollow. It's the mask of someone who doesn't feel love but performs it convincingly. The same words that once felt like salvation now sound rehearsed. You start realizing the person who claimed to love you never really existed. And that realization hurts more than anything else. But this is only the beginning. The charm was just the opening act. The true horror of the narcissist doesn't unfold in the seduction, it begins after. When the admiration fades, when the performance stops, and when you no longer fit the fantasy he created, that's when the cruelty begins. Because to the narcissist, love is not a bond. It's a game. And you were never meant to win. The cycle of destruction. After the charm, comes the chaos. What began as affection slowly mutates into control, but not the kind you can easily name. It's quiet, methodical, and devastating. The narcissist's true power lies not in rage or violence, but in patterns, repetitive cycles that trap you in emotional confusion. It's a loop that always follows the same cruel rhythm: idealization, devaluation, and discard. In the beginning, you're the chosen one. He treats you like the center of his universe. Every message glows with admiration, every gesture feels like worship. You become his muse, his confidant, his soulmate. He showers you with attention and insists that no one has ever made him feel this way. You believe him because he believes himself, for a while. In this idealization phase, you are perfect, flawless, irreplaceable. You are everything he ever wanted, or so it seems. But what you don't see is that he isn't falling in love with you, he's falling in love with the reflection of himself he finds in you. The moment you show humanity, a different opinion, an independent thought, a need that doesn't align with his, the illusion starts to crumble. That's when devaluation begins. It doesn't arrive all at once, it sneaks in through small cracks. A dismissive comment here. A sarcastic tone there. Subtle corrections, disguised as helpful feedback. "You're so sensitive," he says when you express hurt. "You always misunderstand me when you try to explain yourself." Slowly, you start to doubt your perceptions. You wonder if you really are too emotional, too demanding, too hard to love. He begins comparing you to others, a friend, a colleague, an ex. "She's not as dramatic as you," he might say casually, pretending it's harmless. You begin competing with invisible people just to earn back his approval. But no matter what you do, it's never enough. The more you give, the less he values you. You start trying to be the version of yourself that once made him happy, not realizing that person never really existed. The energy shifts entirely. His eyes, once full of warmth, now look at you with quiet judgment. His messages get shorter. His touch, mechanical. Conversations turn into landmines. You stop speaking freely, afraid of setting off irritation you can't predict. You adapt, compromise, shrink, all in the name of keeping the peace. And just when you think it can't get colder, it does. Then comes the final act, the discard. He withdraws emotionally, sometimes physically. One day, he's gone, ghosted, detached, unreachable. No closure, no explanation. Or worse, he provokes you until you break it off yourself. That way, he gets to play the victim. He'll tell mutual friends, "I tried everything. She changed." And while you're falling apart, he's already preparing for his next admirer, someone new to idealize, someone who hasn't seen the mask slip. You're left behind, confused, heartbroken, and full of self-doubt. The silence feels unbearable. You replay every moment, every word, asking, "What did I do wrong?" But the truth is simple and cruel: you did nothing wrong. You were merely human in the presence of someone who can't tolerate humanity. Carl Jung once said that everything we deny in ourselves will be projected onto others. That's exactly what the narcissist does. The anger, shame, and insecurity he refuses to face, he unloads onto you. You become the carrier of his unhealed wounds. When he feels small, he belittles you. When he feels rejected, he accuses you of betrayal. When he feels powerless, he controls you. And the cruelest part? The cycle doesn't always end with the discard. Many narcissists return. They reappear with apologies, tears, promises to change. "I've realized my mistakes," they'll say, holding your hand. You want to believe them, of course you do. But what they really want is not reconciliation. It's reinforcement. They need to know they still have power over you. If you take them back, the cycle resets. The love bombing returns, but shorter this time, more artificial. The devaluation follows faster, sharper. Each round leaves you weaker, more dependent, less yourself. It's not a relationship anymore. It's a psychological loop, one designed to break you from the inside out. It's called the cycle of destruction for a reason. Because each turn of it erodes a piece of your confidence, your self-worth, your clarity. Until one day, you no longer remember the sound of your own voice. But the first step to breaking the pattern is recognizing it. Because the moment you can name what's happening, you begin to reclaim what he took, your reality. And once you see the pattern, you can finally begin to escape it. Seeing the truth and breaking free. There comes a moment when the fog begins to lift. At first, it's barely noticeable, a quiet thought, a small question, a flicker of doubt in the darkness. But once it appears, it spreads. You start to see the pattern, and what once felt like love now looks like control. You begin to understand that what you lived through wasn't affection, it was domination disguised as care. The narcissist never hits you with a single blow. He erodes you slowly. He doesn't scream, he rewrites. He doesn't break your bones, he bends your mind. Over time, he convinces you that your reactions are the problem, that your emotions are too heavy, your expectations too high. He tells you that no one else would tolerate you the way he does, and eventually, you start to believe it. That belief is the cage. Living with a narcissist is death by 1,000 small cuts. The constant tension, the subtle insults, the unpredictable silence, they all eat away at who you were. You stop laughing freely. You second-guess your instincts. You ask for permission to exist in peace. And when you finally look in the mirror, you don't recognize the person staring back. The sparkle in your eyes is gone, replaced by someone cautious, quiet, half asleep. But here's the truth, what you lost can be reclaimed. Because the moment you see what's happening, you've already started to break free. Awareness is the first crack in the narcissist's illusion. Once you understand that their cruelty was never about you, something inside shifts. You realize the manipulation wasn't personal, it was mechanical. The narcissist didn't choose you because you were weak. They chose you because you were strong, kind, capable of giving what they could not feel. Jung wrote, "What we deny submits us, but what we accept transforms us." Accepting that you were manipulated doesn't make you foolish, it makes you free. You start to see that their need for control stemmed from fear, their arrogance from emptiness, their charm from desperation. They were never your mirror, they were your distortion. Breaking free doesn't always mean slamming doors and cutting ties overnight. Sometimes it starts quietly, with reclaiming your mind. You begin to challenge the lies they planted. You remind yourself that empathy isn't weakness, that love doesn't require self-erasure. You stop apologizing for existing. You begin to rebuild boundaries that were once demolished, boundaries that say, "I am allowed to feel. I am allowed to say no. I am allowed to leave." And when you finally do step away, the silence that follows feels strange. There's no chaos, no guilt trips, no drama, only stillness. At first, that stillness feels unbearable because you've been conditioned to live in noise. But give it time. That silence is not emptiness, it's healing. It's the space where your voice begins to return. You'll grieve, of course. You'll grieve the illusion, the hope, the person you thought they were. You'll replay every red flag you ignored and every moment you tried harder than you should have. But in that grief lies rebirth. You'll start remembering small things, your laugh, your intuition, your capacity to trust yourself again. Each day, you'll reclaim a piece of yourself that the narcissist tried to erase. The truth is, you don't need an apology to heal. You don't need them to admit what they did. The closure you seek will not come from their mouth, it will come from your understanding. You'll realize that love is not supposed to make you smaller. It's not supposed to make you afraid. Real love builds, it doesn't consume. When you finally look back, you'll see the narcissist for what he truly was, a broken person feeding on the light of others. His charm, his confidence, his control, all were armor against his emptiness. And when he could no longer extract that light from you, he moved on to find another source. That isn't power. That's hunger. And you survived it. You woke up inside the illusion and walked out of it. That is your victory. Because freedom doesn't begin with leaving him. It begins with seeing him clearly. Once you understand the mask, it loses its magic. Once you stop needing his validation, his power disappears. You are not who he told you you were. You are the one who escaped the mirror. And from this moment forward, every time you choose peace over chaos, self-respect over guilt, and truth over illusion, you reclaim your life piece by piece. That is what it means to be free. Not to forget what happened, but to finally understand it. And once you see through the mask, you never fall for it again.